Cowboy Bebop is a masterpiece that was created by Shinjiro Watanabe. Made in 1998, it had a masterful combination of animation, which even holds up to today's high standards, direction, amazing characters and outright storytelling, which were all exceptional. But for me, what takes this story from good to that realm of great is its amazing portrayal of acceptance, and how Watanabe's Cowboy Bebop will teach you to accept both your past and your future. This video will contain spoilers. You have been warned. The first character that I want to look into is the fearless, nonchalant, yet serious protagonist, nicknamed the Red Dragon Enforcer, one of the coldest anime characters ever created, Spike Spiegel.
I think it's time we blow this scene, get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
Spike's past with the Red Dragon Syndicate and Julia are two things that have haunted him throughout Cowboy Bebop, as when Spike was willing to leave the Syndicate, which, by the way, is punished by death, for Julia, his desertion from the Syndicate was discovered by our main antagonist of the story, Vicious. This attachment to Julia clings on to Spike, and his desire to find Julia, to find the truth, would become his main motivation in this story. But this attachment would bring even more baggage with it, in the form of Vicious and the Syndicate, which would cost Spike everything. This attachment to his past is almost spelled out by Watanabe, and it is first mentioned in episode 13, Jupiter Jazz Part 2, where Gren, who seemed like a predator in the first half of the episode with both meats and melons, I mean no one's safe from this guy, mentioned that Julia told him about Spike having different coloured eyes. This subtle bit of information remains in the back of the viewer's head, and isn't really touched upon until the finale in episode 26, The Real Folk Blues Part 2, where Faye tries to stop Spike from taking revenge, but then Spike says, "Look at my eyes, Faye, one of them is fake because I lost it in an accident. Since then, I've been seeing the past in one eye and the present in the other, so I thought I could only see patches of reality, never the whole picture. I felt like I was watching a dream I could never wake up from. Before I knew it, the dream was over." In this dialogue, Spike admits that a surgically replaced eye only allows him to see the past. Therefore, Spike was stuck in his past, never accepting it, due to the uncertainty surrounding it. But, upon the death of Julia, it opens his eye once more. It set him free and cleared the mist of uncertainty from his past, no longer controlled by his past, but now, due to Julia's death, Spike can accept it, which allowed him to make a sincere decision to seek revenge on Vicious and the Syndicate. Now, is this attachment to Julia shown through Spike's surgical left eye justified? Well, that's up to you, the viewer, to decide. As after all, Spike does say, "She was a piece of me I have lost. She is my other half I have longed for." But one may ask himself, does this attachment to his past outweigh the connection he had made with Jet, Faye, Edward, and even I? Was this attachment worth his life as well as Julia's? Was the price of his past worth his future? All questions that were brought up to me with Jet and his story on the man who injured himself in the savannah. As Jet says, a man injured his leg during a hunt in the middle of the savannah with no means to treat the wound. The leg rots and death approaches. The man got onto the airplane that finally arrived, and there he sees a land of pure white below him. The place glistening in the light was the summit of a snow-covered mountain. The name of the mountain was Kilimanjaro. The man thinks that was where he was headed. Spike then replies, "And?" ? Jet then replies, "I hate this story. Men only think about the past, right before their death, as if they were searching frantically for proof that they were alive." And then, after a brief pause, Jet says, "Turn back. You told me when we first met that you were a man who had already died once. Just forget the past, okay?" I believe, in this conversation with Jet, Spike would have asked himself those questions, and many more, on the weight of his decision, I believe this was shown in his response about Julia being the other half he had longed for. And I think it was here where Spike accepted his fate, accepted his past, accepted that it may just cost him everything, and in that acceptance, he made a sincere decision, one where he wasn't going there to die, but to see if he was truly alive, one where he could die with no regrets and die in peace. On the flip side of things, Spike's acceptance of his future and death is communicated through the now infamous scene.
Oh well, whatever happens, happens.
This scene holds a lot of significance outside of its popularity, as it shows that Spike doesn't fear death, doesn't fear what the future has in store for him. I mean, throughout the series, he always wants to bounty hunt criminals that have a big bounty number, or are outright dangerous humans. Now, you could argue that this may be a cover by Spike, as trauma from his past consumes him, giving him the desire to live in a manner where he is always one step away from the Grim Reaper's door. But I like to see it as him being okay with death, okay with his future, as all he can truly control is the present. I believe Spike knows that death completes life, that the present is all we truly have, and worrying about the future will bring nothing but anxiety. Anxiety which forms due to a person not doing what he needs nor wants, rather letting life control them, and not controlling life. Therefore, a man such as Spike, who lives entirely in the present, living with minimal regrets, he is a person who has the capabilities to accept his future, to accept his death, and this acceptance of death is brought up once more by Laughing Bull in the finale, where he says, "Do not fear death. Death is always at our side. When we show fear, it jumps at us faster than light. But if we do not show fear, it casts its eye upon us gently, and then guides us into infinity." This bit of wisdom by Laughing Bull suggests to me that one can only stop fearing once he has truly learned to accept. The next character on the Bebop that I want to touch on is the glue that holds the Bebop together, the man that should just shave the rest of his hair off and go bald, nicknamed the Black Dog, Jet Black. Looking at Jet's character design, an instant observation can be made when looking at his mechanical left arm. This injury was given by Yudai Taksim, a gunman affiliated with a European syndicate. This was done when Jet and his so-called friend, Fad, were on a mission for the ISSP before Jet's time on the Bebop. But unbeknownst to Jet, Fad and Yudai were working together and set a trap, which led to a bullet fired by Yudai which completely destroyed Jet's arm. Jet survived, and although cell regeneration was possible at the time, Jet decided to go with an interesting decision, a mechanical replacement, as a reminder of what happened to him. Watanabe deliberately keeps this in Jet's character design and tells us this fact to show us that Jet clings onto his past, to an event which led to him losing his left arm, which symbolizes his refusal to let go of his past, both metaphorically and literally, refusing to forget the evils committed to him by Yudai Taksim. Until episode 16, Black Dog Serenade, where the truth that Fad was a corrupt officer is said by Yudai to Jet. This eventually led to Yudai dying by Fad's hands and Fad dying by Jet's hand. The moment where Jet lets go is through his actions of making Fed, a man who betrayed him, look like a hero, forgiving and therefore accepting his past. With the mechanical arm now being a sign of his forgiveness and acceptance of his past, rather than a source of trauma. This trait of Jet's has been shown early in the show with his relation with Alyssa, as Alyssa would eventually leave Jet due to her feeling that she had no independence outside of their relationship, feeling as if she wasn't the driver but the passenger of her own life. This led to her subtle departure from Jet by leaving a watch as well as a note that simply said, "Farewell." Torn by grief and confusion, Jet would keep this watch even after it stopped working, an item which shows the audience that he is afraid to let go, afraid to accept Alyssa leaving him. This denial to accept Alyssa's decision is shown in the form of the watch, as due to the watch being broken, it shows that time is stuck in one place for Jet, that he is still living in his past rather than the present, that Jet has not moved on. Until one day, he finds Alyssa in a relationship with a criminal known as Rint Selenios. I know I've butchered that second name, but that name's got too much flair and razzle dazzle to it for me to pronounce it. I mean, his name sounds like someone that would steal your girl. Can't have a name like that and have no flair to yourself, you know. But upon questioning Alyssa, he finds the key to accepting his past. He finds the truth, and the truth sets him free. As once he finds out the why, he moves on and says to Alyssa, after turning in Rint to the ISSP, time never stands still, showing that through acceptance of the past, one is able to let go of it, to stop it from controlling you. Jet then places his hands in his pocket and finds the watch. After taking one last look with a cheeky grin, he throws this watch into the river, symbolizing that he finally, truly accepts his past with Alyssa, and finally has let go of his past with her. The third human member of the Bebop, who is brash, egotistical, yet bold, a person with some hypnotizing jiggle physics, where I know the animators had fun. The one, the only, Faye Valentine. Faye is a character who has a fear of being abandoned, which is a trait directly linked to her past. Due to this fear, she tries her hardest not to become attached to the members of the Bebop, letting her fear from her past control her actions. The reasoning behind her fear of being abandoned is shown in her past, as in episode 15, My Funny Valentine, where after a devastating accident, she was frozen in time to a period where injuries could be healed. Upon being revived, she finds out that she has no memories of her past, and that she was told by Dr. Bacchus that she owes a debt of 300,028,000 wulong. Damn, inflation ain't a joke. The final nail in the coffin would be a lawyer named Whitney Haggis Matsumoto, who pretended to help Faye escape this debt. Eventually, Faye falls in love, but this love would be short, as when she found out that Whitney lied to her and wanted to clear his own debt by passing assets, which were actually just his debt, onto Faye by faking his death. Faye would never become attached to someone and would never want to be abandoned again. This would be until she met the crew on the Bebop, where she tries to run away from her true self, her true feelings, due to her fear not allowing her feelings to be expressed, due to fear controlling her, a fear that was born from her past. But this would change as in the second half of episode 15, Faye finds out that Whitney faked his death, and finds that the doctor was also in on the scam. The realization of this, and the truth on how she got injured in her past, helps with her acceptance of abandonment, acceptance of herself, and her past. Further knowledge of her past appears in a VSH tape in episode 24, Hard Luck Woman, and who she really is requires further acceptance of herself and her past. But the first step of truth and knowledge of the truth has been taken in her quest to accept her past and therefore herself. In the finale, Faye would speak with Spike, where she says, "You told me once to forget the past, that it doesn't matter, but you're the one still tied to the past, Spike." Spike proceeds to tell Faye about his eyes being different coloured, which leads to Faye replying with, "You have never told me anything about yourself, so don't tell me now." Faye then proceeds to open up to Spike and tell him that the Bebop is all she has, as her past brought nothing good. Here, Faye fails to see that her past decisions, good or bad, brought her to her present, a present where she is accepted for who she is by the crew on the Bebop, accepted by others when she couldn't even accept herself. This failure to accept herself, due to the lack of knowing who she is, both in a metaphorical sense and a literal sense, is the reason for her rage. In addition to this, her refusal to know anything about Spike once more shows that she fears being attached even if she desires it. Now you may say that she is right to act in such a manner due to her previous experiences, and you aren't wrong in saying that, but I believe what makes this experience different to her other experiences of abandonment is that the crew on the Bebop actually showed what true friends are, what true love is. Hence, no longer being betrayed, but just a friend, simply moving on. Just two paths that crossed, but no longer can, which is okay and happens to us all in life. But the acceptance of this, which cannot occur through rage, but exploration of why the rage occurred, is the key to accepting our true selves. The final character that I want to touch on is the final character which joined the Bebop, a 13-year-old hacker from Earth, an eccentric, mischievous young lady, radical, Edward. Edward, who is usually accompanied by the pet of the Bebop, Ayn, is a character I see as the embodiment of freedom in the show. A kid with a dog who doesn't care for her past and doesn't let it affect her whatsoever. Edward is the only character out of the Bebop who has accepted who she is from the very start, accepting that her father abandoned her and forgiving him, hence moving on, not ever hating, knowing that hate is a desire to harm others without realizing it damages you the most. Watanabe communicates this through two things. The first is making Edward a kid, as kids have natural innocence, which allows them to forgive and accept, even without knowing they have. The second is when Ed meets her father in episode 24, Hard Luck Woman, where she bears no hate, only love, to see him. This scene is important because it shows that Ed has accepted her past through forgiveness and love, separating her from the other three members of the Bebop. Once she leaves the crew on the Bebop, the viewer and the crew don't feel whole, as Ed is seen as a source of light, which may come off as annoying to some viewers in the start, but as the story gets darker, Ed's light gets brighter, until it's gone. This is shown in the scene where Jet and Spike are both eating boiled eggs quietly, and the crew, as well as us, the viewer, have to accept that Ed is moving on, and so must we, as the show nears its end. The final thing from this masterpiece of a show I want to touch on is the end card. As with each special episode where the past is explored for the characters, we usually get a different end card from the usual "See you space cowboy ... These end cards usually leave the viewer with a statement or question which almost forces them to think on the episode, even after it's finished. An example being the end card in the movie for Cowboy Bebop. Are you living in the real world? ? This question made me think back to a quote from the movie by Electra Ovirowa, another name with Razzle Dazzle, where she said to Spike in a cell, "Our memories will be erased and we will be killed. Either way, the person you are, the person I am, will be gone. Even if we are alive, it's like we are dead." This quote made me think that if one refuses to accept their past, wishing it never existed, can they say they are alive? Living where the past controls you is not living, but like being dead. And being delusional and not accepting the past gives rise to lies. Lies which give the illusion of healing. Lies that give rise to a life of pain, leading to a life where one never knows who they truly are. But for me, the final message in the finale, The Real Folks Blues Part 2, is my favourite, where the end card is, "You will carry that weight, full stop." The use of a period is intentionally done here, and is done to separate it from "See you space cowboy ... which ends in an ellipsis, giving comfort to the viewer that there will be more. But the period in the last episode combined with its message is important because the period suggests that there is no more comfort, no more next thing. This mixed with the silence makes you realize that you have to carry that weight and accept that weight, and you may want to hide, neglect or run from the past, but no matter what, the weight of what you carry is decided by how willing you are to accept your past and future, where inevitably, no matter what you do to try and avoid yourself, you will carry that weight. The last thing I want to clarify on acceptance is that acceptance does not mean accepting everything in your life, but rather accepting those things that are truly out of your control, things which are impossible to change or predict, but things you can change and do have control of. These things must be done to a point where you can't do anything more, and you have sincerely done everything in your power. If this leads to failure, you can now accept it and be at peace with it. This show has taught me many other lessons, which if I was to touch on in this video, it would be simply hours long and I would run out of time. But the main things I've learned from this show are acceptance and to not leave your things in the fridge, as it may come back to bite you. But all jokes aside, thank you for watching and may peace be upon you.